There is a line in one of the Ghalib's poetry about an entire world existing through the imagination of one person. And perhaps that is the easiest way to understand what is happening in Pakistan today. One man was removed from picture, but politics itself disappeared with that person. And now, even before that man has properly returned, the entire political structure has started moving again. Welcome to Fourth Floor Post English. Now, to understand why, we cannot begin in Islamabad. We must begin in the world outside Pakistan, because Pakistan's power structure has rarely survived on a domestic strength alone. It survives on external oxygen, strategic relevance, financial pipelines, and international guarantees that allow the certain arrangements to continue regardless of the public opinion. And all of these, the guarantees, the oxygens are now disappearing. Donald Trump can threaten Iran, threaten Oman, announce sanctions and promise destructions every other day. But threats lose their value when the world stops taking them seriously. Iran has survived decades of sanctions. Israel is no longer obediently following Washington's preferred regional plan. The Gaza framework has been discarded. The Lebanon front has exposed the limits of the American influence. And Washington cannot simultaneously confront Iran, discipline Israel, and prevent the rest of the region from creating their own security architecture. This is why the emerging Saudi-Pakistan-Turkey security framework matters. Turkey's involvement in Syria matters, and Pakistan's movement in Syria also matters. The discussions surrounding Egypt and Bangladesh also matter. If Bangladesh eventually moves towards such an arrangement, it will not simply be because of Saudi Arabia, Israel, or hostility towards India. A strategic decision of that scale would inevitably carry a Chinese dimension. And that is the only problem with Egypt, because right now General Sisi has his eyes on American world. He can't risk that. So India should pay attention to this. Narendra Modi's approach has trapped India into viewing almost every regional development through the lens of Pakistan. If Pakistan and Bangladesh move closer under the broader security framework, with China sitting above the structure, New Delhi will require something more sophisticated than another speech about isolating Pakistan. America, meanwhile, is in no position to prevent these arrangements. NATO is weakened and increasingly interested in reducing its own dependence on Washington. A changing American Congress may also become less interested in financing the old security order merely to preserve Israeli dominance. Any future American engagement is more likely to be connected with the international law, human rights, because of the new Congress, because of the new Social Democratic Congress. Financial accountability will be there. Then it will be nothing but, or it will be everything but unconditional protection for regional strongmen, which it used to be. This is what I mean when I say about that the system is losing all the guarantees in the pipelines. A pipeline allows a ruler to impose a major political arrangement because an external power is prepared to provide money, legitimacy, and strategic covers. We saw that happening in the canal situation. We saw that happening in the mineral situation. Now they are talking about the new provinces and everything. But let's keep that aside for the further. We saw the pipelines did not emerge out of nowhere. We saw that pipelines cannot emerge after the new guarantees and the new security architectures, because interest-based strategy is being preferred rather than holding on someone as some gun for hire or something like that. See, on the other hand, the guarantees. One's the pipeline and the other is the guarantees. Guarantees preserve the international importance of a domestic power structure even when its internal legitimacy is collapsing. Zia had a pipeline, Musharraf had a pipeline. Today, where is all of that? Saudi Arabia's priorities are changing, American priorities are changing, Israel's behaviors is destabilizing the very architecture that once protected its allies or once protected itself. Turkey's influence is expanding and China is quietly becoming the destination towards which many of these new arrangements naturally move. Once external oxygen declines, internal heat becomes impossible to ignore in Pakistan. And that is why Pakistan's political structure is suddenly showing flexibility towards Khan. It has not discovered democracy overnight, it has discovered vulnerability of its own. The debate about creating a new province is largely noise. We are being told that the establishment have decided something. The public supposedly demands it, and therefore it will inevitably happen. Which public? Who measured this extraordinary national demand? A few television anchors speaking to their well-informed sources. Who are these sources? Pakistan's problem is not the number of provinces. Smaller provinces may theoretically be easier to administrate, but administration is not the central crisis. The crisis is the distribution and the legitimacy of power. If elections are manipulated, changing map will not produce honest governance. It will simply produce new offices, new chief executives, new faces, new budgets, and maybe the new sycophants for the same corrupt power elites. You cannot solve the abuse of power merely by concentrating it in different parts. If the intention is genuinely administrative reforms, the answer is much simpler. Credible elections, constitutional protection for the local government elections every 5 years, and a provincial finance commission with protection comparable to the National Financial Commission. Strengthened elected mayors, transfer authority and the money through transparent constitutional structure. But that would improve the governance. And governance does not appear to be the real objective. The new provinces discussion is therefore either distraction and an instrument of pressure or a cover for something more important, movement towards Imran Khan. See, sudden environment is being created in which a deal may eventually become possible. The entire hospital episode that happened with Imran Khan exposed this movement. If Khan's health alone were the issue, the authorities never required the Supreme Court order. They could have called his family, arranged a treatment and shifted him to an appropriate hospital. Instead, a managed system produced a judgment, panicked over its own judgment, discussed review petitions and then created a circus over whether a prisoner could be moved from an ordinary jail to what they suddenly portrayed as a 5-star hotel. On one side, there is Information Minister Azam Nadeer Tarar, Talal Chaudhary, the Interior Minister, and the certain authorities, which are not to be named, argued that the order was defective and required modification. Another side, Rana Sanallah, Tariq Fazal Chaudhary, and even the relevant health authorities indicated that the judgment should be implemented in full control. So now that is not the control what happened there, that is tug of war that happened there, wheels within the wheels. A system that fears one photograph of Imran Khan is supposedly preparing to redraw Pakistan's century-old geography. Imagine it cannot decide how to transfer one prisoner to a private hospital without exposing the internal differences. But we are expected to believe it has developed a grand constitutional blueprint for this country. Sorry, sir, we refuse to believe that. The Shifa International episode may return because its underlying purpose has not disappeared. The objective appears to be creating relief around Khan, better treatment, family contact, political communication, and an atmosphere that might reduce his anger enough to permit negotiations. Bringing hope close and then suddenly withdrawing it may have been a psychological pressure, or it may have been the result of a competing power centers. Either way, the episode would never have occurred if nothing inside the establishment has moved. The establishment needs room for a political settlement because the country is unstable. The economy offers no cushion and the external guarantees and the pipelines are not available anymore. But it still wants flexibility without surrendering control, and that is the contradiction. And then there is Khan himself. The system is trying to approach a political giant without accepting that he has become a political giant. That cannot work. The moment Khan visibly returns, even through a hospital window or a photograph or a public access, every other political figure inside the establishment, outside the establishment, in all of the Pakistan begins to look smaller. A structure built entirely around keeping him invisible cannot casually absorb him and continue unchanged. This is why Khan's choices now matter enormously. If he accepts power merely to rescue the same structure that imprisoned him, he risks damaging both his politics and his legacy. If he supports centralization, artificial administration, experiments, new provinces, whatever, because all of this will be designed for someone else's survival. So if Khan accepts all of that, he could live long enough politically to see himself turned from a hero to a villain. A serious settlement must involve a change in thinking, credible elections, and a defined transition. It may also require some appointments, some new faces to dilute the existing mindset inside the establishment and reopen communications with the new slate with Imran Khan. This recent Defense Act may define power more clearly, but definition is not necessarily consolidation. Defining the position of the Chief of Defense Forces can also create new institutional space, while existing authority over the naval and the air force promotions, their dismissals, retirements, obviously will generate future friction within their respective chain of command. But keep that aside. Defining the roles is always better than consolidation. So there are high chances things will not move smoothly because Pakistan is moving towards a settlement through conflict, not towards a settlement instead of conflict. So the next 3 to 4 months, therefore, matter both internationally and domestically. America is approaching another political transition in November, the Congress elections, and Israel faces its own electoral questions, whether Netanyahu survives or not. If Netanyahu survives, then the world could see a very big disaster because America would go into instability because Netanyahu will try to control the American elections. And if you try to control the American elections right now from the natural way, and the natural way, which seems right now, is the Social Democrats winning. So that will create a lot of problems in the world. And even if that doesn't happen, even if the new Congress comes over, the security architecture, the security structures in the whole region will begin to shift. So Pakistan's establishment is trying to calculate what external support will remain available, while Khan is deciding whether relief is an opening for genuine political change or merely another attempt to obtain oxygen for a failed system. So the September's end, the 27th September, may become important because the present atmosphere cannot remain suspended indefinitely. If no meaningful settlement develops, the pressure will escalate. If negotiations begin without recognizing the Khan's actual political stature, they will fail. And if the establishment attempts to maintain chaos, raising it, lowering it, raising it again, it will eventually discover that the controlled chaos never remains controlled. There is no absolute power in the world, sir. Not in Washington, not in Tel Aviv, and certainly not in Islamabad. Everything affects everything. The real story is not whether Pakistan will suddenly create new provinces. The real story is whether the establishment is prepared to concede that the old arrangement has exhausted itself, and whether Imran Khan is prepared to resist the temptation of returning to power without changing the arrangement that produced this crisis. One side must concede. The changing world has already decided which side has fewer alternatives.